I think really good marketing and branding is a form of networking. Your content can be a networking source for you.
You're listening to Her Space, an Architect My Business mini show highlighting women architects, designers, and allies who have paved the way for women to lead and own their space in architecture, engineering, and construction. Formerly known as the Architect My Life podcast, this show will continue to feature inspiring conversations, stories, and experiences of women in the built environment, empowering you to realize your full potential. Join me as I chat with remarkable women in the field and prove that in the world of architecture and design, every place has a space for her. Let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm so excited to introduce our guest for today, Julie Brown. Julie is a leading figure in the AEC industry, specializing in helping people build strong networks. She's known for her dynamic speaking style that not only inspires but also drives transformation within organizations and their members. Julie noticed a common theme among architects and people in general. People hate networking. So over 20 years, she's been on a mission to change that perception. She's all about helping architects and firm owners make genuine connections within and outside the AEC industry without having to sell. Her tools have empowered a lot of architects to level up their careers through networking. Julie is also a business development strategist with a deep understanding of the architecture industry. So she's helped architects discover and put into action effective business strategies, especially in personal branding, content creation, and lead generation. So in today's episode, we're going to dig into networking, personal branding, and content creation for architects. Oh, one more thing, Julie will be sharing some great insights from her book, This Shit Works, a no-nonsense guide to networking your way to more friends, more adventures, and more success. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks for having me.
So how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm very busy. Of course, I feel like everybody's busy. That's the buzzword for everybody. We're so busy, but I'm having a great time. This professional speaking is a second career for me, having spent 17 years in architecture, engineering, and construction. So I'm just actually so pleased with this second career and what it's sort of doing for me. Like I'm having the best time with it.
That's amazing. So 17 years serving the AEC industry.
Correct.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in the show, because I've pivoted my show to the Architect My Business podcast to really help architects scale their businesses. And one of the big pain points for us architects is really networking.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned in my intro, I hate networking. I'm an outsourcing or support service business. I built my business based on, referrals, right?
Yeah.
But then during the pandemic like in 2008, at some point you'll run out of referrals, right? And at this point I wanted to share a story. I had already 10 employees, but my pipeline was dying. So networking was the only way. I hated it so much, but I had a business development strategist consultant to help me. And I'm happy to share that I'm a major, like I'd go to a lot of networking events alone. And my business has grown around 300% in the last 8 years of really networking. So I wanted to bring Julie, the expert in terms of the networking. So networking is such a crucial part of professional growth. Why should architects prioritize networking?
Okay, so the answer is sort of twofold. One is for your female architects who are listening, because studies show that one of the single biggest limiting factors for women in business is lack of a network. And it's because a lot of jobs come via networking. They come word of mouth and from referrals. So if we can have our network be doing that, sort of heavy lift of saying our names in rooms full of opportunities and giving us leads, that is so helpful. And so the fact that a limiting factor for women is we don't have that network. We don't have a deep bench of people that are saying our names or that we can go to for strategic introductions or referrals is really important. So from a gender specific, and I'm talking in binary terms right now because there's not a lot of data around how non-binary people network and build businesses. It just doesn't exist. Believe me, I've looked for it. But there's concrete data on the differences between men and women. So it's the only reason why I'm talking in binary terms right now. The second thing, as far as networking for architects, is it's so much more involved than just, I'm going to network to find my next client, whether it's I design houses or I design commercial space or I design within academic environments. You're not just networking for lead generation, you're networking for consultants and team members and project and creating the best project team you can for those clients. And so when I did network in the industry, I didn't just network for lead generation. I networked to build the strongest team possible for my clients.
I love that, building the strongest team possible, because people have a kind of like, people think that networking is all about sales and conversions. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But more importantly, it's really building your team, potential clients, potential referrals, right? Yeah. And I really think that generosity is the key to success. When you show up and, share who you know, share your network, it will actually build and raise your network as well.
Yeah.
Right? I read in your LinkedIn post that 85% of jobs are filled throughout networking, which is a staggering statistic. Mm-hmm. So how do you connect this concept to the architecture industry in general?
Well, what's more interesting about that, and your listeners probably know this. So yes, 85% of jobs are filled through networking. And the people who are listening who own their own architecture practices probably understand that only a fraction of the jobs that are available are ever advertised. So if you want to hire the best, so let's look at it from two different perspectives, hiring the best talent or being hired. So if you want to hire the best talent, you need to work your network to figure out who to hire, because we all know what it's like to advertise an architecture position and have 500 people apply. It's really hard to make heads or tails of that many resumes that come in and that many portfolios that come in. But when you leverage your network for who is the best person to join our team, who do you know who would fit into our company culture, who do you know who wants to work on the kinds of projects that we want to work on, because we know architects, that's what they're driven by. They're driven by wanting to work on the kinds of projects. So if you hire somebody and they're not into the kinds of projects your firm does, you're not going to retain them. We have a huge retention issue in every industry, but also in the architecture world. So you have to leverage your network to get the best possible talent that wants to work on the projects that your firm works on. Now, if you're looking for a job, this is even more important. If you know that, I think the average number is 27% of jobs are actually advertised. So 27% of jobs are advertised. So 73% of jobs are not advertised. And the only way you're going to find out about them is if you start saying to people, I'm looking for this kind of job. Do you know any of the firms that do this kind of work that you could introduce me to? It's networking via relationships into those firms, because sometimes they'll make a job for you, again, most of the jobs aren't advertised. If you're going up against, I don't know how many people typically apply for a job, but how are you going to stand out? You could have a great portfolio, but guess what? It takes, I know I lecture at colleges and universities, particularly in architectural professional practices around the country. These people are not dumb. They are super talented. You are graduating with a tremendous amount of other completely supremely talented people. What do you think is going to get your foot in the door? It's going to be somebody saying, you should take a look at this person.
I love that you're also talking about networking in terms of talent acquisition and not just project acquisition. Yeah. And this is where a lot of architects need to really focus. Your architects in general are way too busy finding work, but what happens when the work comes, right? Yeah. So I'm glad that our topic will resonate well with job hunters and job seekers, right, and also architects looking for a job. So I'm really excited about this. So, let's talk about a typical firm owner who's so busy doing work, and they're in a small town. Well, like I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, right? I'm doing residential work. and my pipeline is drying up. Like, what do you suggest for me? Although it's, for a small firm owner, how do they network with a limited, like in a small town in Cleveland? Look, where do you start networking? How do you get started for a small firm owner?
Well, I think you need to look at it what is available to you. There's a couple of ways to do this. Networking, you could always start with just networking with the network you already have. Everybody has a network. People pretty much don't use it strategically, though. So have you looked at your network and said, okay, this is a list of all of the people I know. When was the last time I checked in with this person, had a conversation about my work with this person, asked what's happening in this person's job? Like, when was the last time that I actually used the network that I already have strategically? Probably aren't using it as strategically as you could. The second thing is, in our industry, we are so blessed in our industry to have a number of organizations that serve our industry. So there is, yes, the AIA, and there's the residential builders and the home builders and remodelers, and there's the interior designers, and there's so many industries that serve us, which is where we can go and find new collaborators, potentially new clients, depending on where you sit in sort of like, where you live, are the builders the one who are usually brought on the job first and they hire the architects, or is the other way around? It's usually not the lineal client architect builder anymore. So like, where are these leads? Leads come from everywhere. And I think people are too often think they have to go down one path to get a lead and not realize that having a really broad network, a clustered network, is how you're going to have a sustainable pipeline of leads. Everybody needs housing, lodging. So everyone is a potential client. If you think about it that way, you'll be able to grow leads at a greater rate and not just pigeonholing yourself in as like, this is the only place to find leads. Leads come from everywhere.
So if I'm a residential architect, I go to events like construction, like residential construction events, hanging out with contractors, like strategic, right? You don't want to hang out with fellow architects because they're your potential competition, or?
Well, I never shy away from networking with my competition. And I should actually quantify this, that I am married to a residential architect who has owned his practice for almost 15 years, a practice that I was pivotally involved in for the launch and the sustaining of that practice. So I helped bring in all of his work when he opened the firm in 2010. Now, you alluded to this at the beginning, that we as an architecture, engineering, construction industry, everybody was hurt by the Great Recession. But our industry, because it originated in the subprime mortgage collapse, our industry was hit the hardest out of all of the industries. And so I know what it's like to build a business at the bottom of an economy. And so I know that networking with my competition offers me a peer group that I will need in times of stress, when I need information about how would you handle this? How would you go about this? You should never not network with your competition, because they do what you do. They are feeling the pains that you feel, and they can help you along the way. But also, there's a lot of leads that come into our architectural practice that aren't the leads for us. They aren't the kind of work that we pursue. They're not the right project size for us, because we have a very specific project size. So if it's anything under this amount of construction cost, we want to have really good architects that we can say, you know what, this doesn't fit our portfolio. We don't have time to take on this work, but these are the architects we trust to offer you referrals to. And I think that's really important.
That's great. Yeah, I love that, because people are afraid to network with their peers. Yeah. But, there's always people who can't take on more work. And, a lot of architects, especially when you build a relationship with that architect, are happy to send you work.
Yep.
So now, in today's digital age, architects have more opportunities to create their professional network online. So how do you suggest an architect, or, people in general, network online to help them build a business? I mean, their pipeline of employees and work, and just build their network.
Well, It's very interesting. So there's a couple of different opportunities for us online. There's LinkedIn, of course, which has evolved from being, LinkedIn used to be the place you would it was like your online resume, and it was literally where you would go to find a job. And it has evolved into this really robust, not just networking platform, but content dissemination platform and connection platform. So there's LinkedIn. Then we, as, people in the built world, imagery is really important to tell a story for what the projects that we work on. So of course, Instagram is really great for architects, and builders. I don't deal with Facebook and I don't deal with TikTok, because I think you can't master everything. You have to pick your lane. And for me, I've picked LinkedIn and Instagram as the place for me to disseminate my information. Now, I do believe the future of information dissemination is voice and video. So the more you can walk your potential clients and collaborators through your project process, through projects that you're working on, explain the design process for builders, explaining the building process. The more you can show that through voice and video, I think the more you'll resonate with people, and people will want to say, hey, I want to learn more about this company. I want to work for this company. Maybe, I love what they're doing. I love their presence. As far as networking, so I should have said that I think really good marketing and branding is a form of networking, because you can't be everywhere all at once. And what was really funny was during the pandemic, when we weren't anywhere, we were working from home, I was creating content and disseminating so much information that when I finally saw people, when we finally could go to events, people were like, I see you everywhere. Well, they didn't see me anywhere. I was sitting in my office creating that content, but my content networked for me because it was in my voice, in my colors, and it was teaching people things. And so your content can be a networking source for you. But then networking on LinkedIn is super important. Not everybody is on LinkedIn. So you have to remember that you're only going to find certain types of people who use that platform robustly. But it's a really good way to figuring out who kind of has similar styles than us, working styles. Can I connect? It's a really easy way to connect with people that otherwise you might not have the ability to connect with because they don't go to live in-person networking events. There's a lot of people I want to connect with, and just because of the type of person they are, whether they're a schedule or they don't like it, they don't go to events. So maybe online is the place that I build that rapport with them.
So I like that. I met a lot of cool people on LinkedIn. You're because I've seen you everywhere, and I love your presentation style because you're just very authentic, and I just love it so much. So how do you now I get 500 requests. I'm looking at all my requests. It's so overwhelming, right? So as a person, you've mastered networking offline and online, right? So if you want to meet a person, what kind of verbiage do you use? So you're not turning off that other person. I just delete all these requests because they're all trying to sell. So do you have a strategy for that?
Yeah. So I also, like you, I do not accept LinkedIn requests from people who don't, express why they want to connect with me. So if they send me the generic, I'd like to join your network on LinkedIn, I just ignore them. And like you, I get hundreds of them, as you can imagine, because my face is out there everywhere. So a really good way to be an effective connector on LinkedIn, there's a few ways to do it. One is to figure out who you want to be connected with and start engaging with their content in advance of reaching out to them. So if I really want to connect with somebody and I'm like, this person's out of my league, I don't know if this person would connect with me, I start going to their content and actually commenting, and not commenting congrats or good job, or really thinking about their content and saying what does this content do for me? What do I think about this content? How do I respond to this content? And be really effective in my communication with their content, with my interaction with their content, and start doing that for a little bit. So they see me constantly, being a good member of the LinkedIn community as far as their content goes. And then understanding, well, why do I want to connect with this person? Like why do I want to? Is it because they create great content? Is it because I want to learn from them? Is it because we have mutual connections? Like, is it because I'm traveling to a city that they're in and perhaps, we could connect when I'm in that city? Or maybe for me a lot, because I'm on large stages, I reach out to all the other speakers who are going to be speaking at a conference that I speak at and say, hey, we're both speaking at this conference. I'd love to carve out some time to get to know you, when we're off stage, but also at the same conference. So giving them a reason, like doing your research. I think the big fault in a lot of people's networking strategies is they don't actually put in enough care and time and research and reasoning into why they want to connect with people. And the more you do that, the more people are apt to reciprocate and want to connect with you and learn about you as well.
That's a great answer, because there's some people that are way out of my league, right? Like that I want to talk to. And you're right, like being strategic about it, like maybe commenting. I mean, I'm not a stalker or anything, but there are people like I really stalk and like everything. And later on when we finally meet, they'll say, hey, you comment on my post about the software that I created. So it really helps. You're right. You're warming the lead, or not necessarily the lead, but the relationship, right? So it's easier for them to connect with you on LinkedIn.
Right.
So now we're talking digital, right? Now I want to segue to personal branding. One of the things I see a lot in architecture websites is they don't have photos of themselves, and the descriptions of their personal profiles are very stale. Like there's nothing about, their hobbies outside of work or things like that. And personal branding for me is major. Our company has grown because I built my personal brand and people know who I am. There's a face behind the brand.
Right.
So how vital is it for architects, especially for networking, to build also a personal brand? Because people say, oh, the work talks for itself. My work is on the website, all beautiful pictures. But what do you say to an architect who has no digital footprint online in terms of his personal branding?
The easiest way to respond to that is people work with people. They don't buy your architecture. They buy the process of working with you to design the architecture that fits for them. And they need to know that, and let's talk about house building. Like, it is an extremely long process. It is an intimate process of designing somebody's home, deciding where they're going to live and raise their children, or perhaps retire and spend their, golden years. It is a very intimate process. And the more you can make somebody feel comfortable with you before you even start that process, the greater the possibility is that you're going to be chosen for that project. And a lot of people, you said it, like, well, my work should speak for itself. Well, guess what? Have you gone to the AIA website? Have you ever seen how many other architects' work speak for themselves? Like, again, architecture is such a beautiful art. It's such a beautiful, industry. But how are you going to stand out as a person? People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so your number one priority is to help them know you, like you, trust you, want to work with you. And then the beautiful pictures, the beautiful projects, that was your barrier to entry. Okay. That was like, you got to be able to do this, but who am I going to sit at that table with and design my home, for the next 3, 6, 8 months, however large the house is, And And the more you give of yourself in those descriptions, the more they can connect with you, find these points of commonality, the easier it is for them to be able to get to know, like, and trust you. And there's not a science to it, but there is an art to talking about yourself in a way that endears people to you, that gets people to want to know you more. And I would suggest for every architecture firm out there, when you do your about page and you list your principals and your project managers and your architects and your designers, you actually hire a copywriter who specializes in writing bios, who can tease these little things out of your team to say, okay, this is how I craft a story about this person and why this person does this. What is the through line for them, which is why they're in love with architecture? And how does that permeate their life and like all the other things that they do? It is so important that you craft those bios in a way that people are eager to learn more, are eager to meet you. I want somebody to, when they read your bio, to say, I got to meet that person.
Yeah, it's true. People work with people, not with your portfolio.
Right.
Like if I were trying to buy a multi-million-dollar apartment, because my one of my best friends is a realtor. She's like, how do I get that to that point where I'm selling, $1 million homes? I'm like, you need to show yourself online, but also, like depends on who's buying. If a realtor, if it's like a banker or a lawyer who's buying, they probably won't resonate with you. But if it's the wife, because she's very cute and very stylish,
right?
If the wife is buying, she'll probably, if she's in charge of the purchase, she'll probably relate to you better, right? Because you hang out in the same circles. Their kids go to the same schools. So it's really about matching too. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. It's so funny you mentioned that because I'm keynoting a realtors conference next week. And we know that the real estate industry is going through a lot of shakeup right now. Not just lack of inventory, but mortgage rates, but also what's happening now with the fee structure for real estate agents. And so I'm really excited to talk to them about the power of leads coming from everywhere and using their voice and learning how to stand out in this industry and building relationships that bring in leads in downtimes. So it's funny that you mentioned real estate.
Yeah. So for architects, right? A lot of small firm owners listen to the podcast. So update your bio, hire a copywriter. Like if they want to start showing themselves online, a lot of us are very shy. We don't I just started doing video, but do you have any tips on how to ease into building your online profile, showing your face?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like getting in a cold pool. I don't guarantee you can cannonball in if you want, but it's going to take your breath away and you might not do it again, But if you go down to that first step of say, okay, so this is step one, I'm going to start doing this online. When I'm comfortable doing that, I'm going to go to the second step and then I'm going to do this. I clearly am very comfortable with my likeness being on my video, my voice, my face, but that took some time. Believe me, nobody likes the sound of their own voice. They hate the look of their face even more. It's kind of like being but this is who I am and this is helpful. If you are providing content that is useful to people, who gives a shit what you look like, or what your voice sounds like? They're there for the usefulness of the content. So are you providing, when you are I don't believe in content for content's sake. Okay. I believe that if you provide useful content that will help your potential clients, help your potential teammates and consultants, that is the kind of useful content that will start ratcheting up your firm. Everybody says that nobody has an attention span right now, and it's not true. We have an attention span for things that are important to us and are useful to us. And so if you can figure out how to start, just even if it's bite by bite, step by step, how am I going to put myself out there to provide useful content for my potential clients and my potential collaborators? Just do it little by little. And then before you know it, you get even more comfortable doing it. And you're like me and your stupid face is everywhere.
I love that. When I started speaking, because I'm also, I'm in the speaker circuit, but not paid yet. I'm not paid. I'm doing
We
all
all
the
start not paid. Don't worry.
yeah. So the first time I spoke online in Zoom in front of the CEO women in Kent State, after that, that was during COVID. I literally, my stomach was in pain, like I was
Yeah.
giving birth.
Yeah.
Like my husband is like, "What's going?" But now I'm everywhere. You're right. Like, well, not like you, but I have content online. I have a YouTube channel now. But I like what you said. Just it's like being in a cold pool. Just do it. But the mindset, right? You really have to learn to be comfortable. And I love what you said about well before that, showing yourself, right? You don't have to be perfect. I was just in a podcast convention, and one of the ladies said perfection is gross. Like you can't be, do you know, like you just need to be authentic, right?
Yeah.
Like
And there's
show
something,
up, you know, like you don't have to be like all dressed up. Look at Gary V. He hasn't shaved and he's like
I know.
out there, like, you know,
So that's a
talking
perfect
online.
example because they've done studies on, done studies on LinkedIn at least, where they put up similar content via video. So video content, they put up video content, similar content on LinkedIn. And one was done professionally by a professional videographer in a studio. And that same content was done like with somebody on their iPhone saying, "Hey, this is what I learned today," you know, blah, blah, blah. The video from the iPhone, the unprofessional videos outperform professional videos like 10 to 1. And it is because we don't want that like sort of very professional, like set up, mandated video. We want like, this is happening in the trenches. This is what I think right now. Like, has this ever happened to you? We like very authentic video. So that should encourage your listeners to say, you know what, I can just pick up my iPhone and I can do it and I can post it and I can see what happens.
Yeah, I think everyone should really, you know, build their personal brand online. Like it was tough for me in the beginning, but I mean, the benefits are amazing. Now let's talk about content creation.
Sure.
You know, like you said, people show up if you have valuable information for your potential clients, audience, or that can help other people, and that we know that it can really help. It's kind of like our moral obligation to share. That's how I see it. Like, my favorite quote from Jay Abraham, because I didn't like to sell before, you know, I've been doing business for 18 years or so, but before I was very shy. One of my mentors told me to read this quote that said, if you have a product or service that can benefit other people, it's your moral obligation to share it.
Yes.
Right. So let's talk about content creation and how architects can leverage content creation to build their network and potentially gain leads.
Yeah. You know, when I keynote, I talk about content creation as a form of networking, business development, lead generation, relationship building. And in order for your content to be a relationship builder for you, to be a branch, a networking arm for you, it needs to be original. It needs to be in your voice. And it's really hard for people to figure out what their online voice is because people think it's supposed to be something other than their real voice. And I did that for years where I was like, well, what does a networking expert sound like online? Like, and then I was just like, you know, who gives a shit? She sounds like me. I'm the expert. So however I talk is the way I'm going to do it. And so it needs to be you. Okay. And so I think the hardest thing is for people to be okay with how they disseminate information. The second thing is there are no boring stories, only boring deliveries. Whatever we work on a daily basis, whatever we're doing, whatever task you are working on, and you think that people wouldn't find that interesting, if you craft a story around it, people will listen to the story because it will resonate with them. And I once heard a professional speaker, and I wish I could remember his name so I could give him the credit for this, but I once heard a professional speaker say, nobody thinks they're good at stories, at telling stories. And we're all good at telling stories. We're not good at collecting stories. So things happen to us in our everyday life and they make us laugh, and we could talk about things and like right off the cuff and say like, oh, this happened today and isn't this funny? And like whatever. We're not good at writing those things down and cataloging them. But if we took our day, so if just challenge to the listener. If something is happening in your business today and it sticks out as something like, oh, maybe somebody could learn from this. Maybe I could teach somebody how to do this. Maybe this is a funny thing that happened in the office that maybe happens in a million other architecture firms that nobody's talking about. If you collected that story and you wrote it down and you just made a little narrative about it and then put that online, see how many people would resonate with it. And do that every day. Like, what is something that's happening in your business every day that people aren't talking about, but it's happening to them every single day? You know, make a story out of it. And if you aren't comfortable with writing and you don't think your writing is the best, ask ChatGPT to make a story about it and then edit it, after ChatGPT writes it. Like, there are so many things that happen in our everyday lives, work lives, business lives, that would resonate with other people if we only had the audacity to share them.
Yeah, I love that, because we all have experiences. We have stories every day. So, I might start doing that and start posting just a tiny story on LinkedIn every day, right? It's small steps. You don't have to be like this massive content creation with thousands of videos. One step every day. So, in terms of like creating content for firms, right? Let's say I'm a residential firm again. What type of content do I create? What type of blogs other than personal stories, obviously, but like, is there a strategy around that?
Stories. Your clients.
Oh, that's true.
That's what you write about. You aren't doing the job. Yes, you are doing the job because you love architecture, but you're doing the job for your client. So what is your client story? What does this house mean to your client? What does a breakthrough in a meeting look like when you have this design problem, you can't figure out this certain thing and then it comes together? What is that moment for your client? It is not about you, and it is not about the home so much as it is how your client uses that home.
So it's almost like an online testimonial about the process. It's easier for the potential client to engage with you because they see the whole process and the experience. What about thought leadership articles like the top so and so, when sustainable windows, or like, what about that kind of content?
I mean, that's great for somebody who's looking for windows, I think, I would never tell somebody to not be a thought leader in this space. There is a lot of cachet that comes with being a thought leader. You cannot be a thought leader in every single part of the industry, though. You have to pick something and be like, this is what sets my soul on fire about this industry. This is what I want to write about. All of the time. This is what I want to be known as an expert in. There's a saying, there's riches and niches. So like, what could you niche down in your industry that this is what you are an expert on, that you want to be known for? I would never tell somebody not to be an expert, but I think, in order to be an expert at something, you have to spend 10,000 hours doing it. That's like the benchmark. So are you really an expert in every single thing? Or are you just commenting on other people's expertise? Which is nothing wrong with that. Like, you could be a commenter on other people's expertise. But I think you want to be known for something, not for sort of like, there's like master of nothing or something like that. I don't know. There's like a saying.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So all the strategies that you shared with us, right? The networking, personal branding, and content creation, this really leads to lead generation, right? And do you have like a specific like case study that you're like super proud of, you can share? Like of a client who like didn't talk and now is making millions, no, something like that, like a success story that you can share with our audience.
So I think I'll go back to when so in 2010, my husband and I in 2008 had decided that in 2010, he would leave his architecture the firm he was in. At that point, he'd been there for 10 years, and that he would start his own practice. What we didn't understand was in 2010 that there would be 55% unemployment for architects because of the subprime mortgage collapse and recession. I was working at a very large architecture firm at the time. So we were both in this, industry it would have been easier if one of us was out of the industry. But I said to him, listen, we know how to do this. You're a talented architect. I am one of the top business developers in the Northeast. Like, we can do this. And if we can make money now, we will always make money. And so he quit his job and I picked up the phone. And remember when I said to the people, to your listeners, you have a list of people in your network, you're probably just not using it strategically. I made that list of people in my network and I picked up the phone. And these people, some of them had never even met Chris. Hey, it's Julie Brown. I just want to let you know, my husband's taking the plunge. Really great time to do it, right? Middle of the recession. Why not? Listen, I don't know. He's really talented. We had created a website. This is his website. If you know anybody who's looking for a residential architect now, tomorrow, in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, like, I'd love it if you could say his name in conjunction with anybody else you might give a referral to. Just kept picking up the phone. I hit on the very first day where one of the girls in my network, one of the women, she's a girl. She's my best friend, so I call her girl. I apologize if that offends people, but she's my girl. One of the girls was like, actually, I just got out of a meeting. She goes, I just got out of a meeting with an independent school that needs to do a farmhouse style residence hall for eight beds. Do you think he could do it? I was like, we'll be there tomorrow. He hadn't even quit his job and I had landed his first job, farmhouse style 8-bedroom residence hall. And this kept happening. I kept having conversations with people and here's the thing. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. People knew me, liked me, and trusted me so much that transferred to my husband, even though they didn't know him. And one of the conversations I had with somebody was like, and I had helped him through I had helped him when he was starting to build his business development career. And I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, my husband's starting his own firm, yada, yada, yada. 2 days later, we get a phone call from this guy's ex-wife. Okay, ex-wife. And she was like, oh, I got your name. I won't say his name. I got your name from so-and-so. He says you're really talented. We need an architect for our house. Chris went and met with her. It was $1 million beach house on the beach in Providence, Rhode Island, which was the first job we had in Providence, Rhode Island. Sorry, not Providence, P-Town on the Cape. I apologize. P-Town on the Cape, right on the water on Commercial Street. It was the first house we did on the Cape, and I cannot count how many houses we have done on the Cape since. And almost every house we have done on the Cape that came from Looky Lou saying, who's doing this house, has been in a magazine. And it all was just me talking to people. But I had done the work. I had built that network. Those people knew me, liked me, trusted me, wanted me to succeed. Not just wanted me to succeed, were invested and willing to help me succeed. And by me, it translated to Chris.
So everybody needs a Julie Brown in their firm.
Or married to him.
And you know what? Your job is very secure. ChatGPT can't do what you do, right?
True.
Like,
true.
So Julie, this has been really incredible. Like, okay, how can people work with you? Do you still work with individual architects?
Yeah.
Where can we get your book? Let me, this is so exciting because, we always want to recession-proof our business. I love that you built your business during the 2010 recession. So how do people engage with you and where to find you?
So I will be honest, most of my life now is spent on a stage talking about networking and business development. About 75% of those stages are in the built world. So it's either architecture, engineering, construction, commercial real estate, and development. And so about 75% of my time is done that. So I'm very, and I don't like the word selective. I don't have a lot of time to work with individual firms, but I still do work with individual firms on a case-by-case basis. And I say case-by-case basis because I'm not the perfect person for everybody. Like, you have to understand my style and how we would work together. And I would not take on a client that I don't feel like I'm an effective coach for them or strategist for them. So I do take on some clients on a case-to-case basis. And the best way to find me, there's 2 ways. So you can go to LinkedIn. So I'm Julie Brown BD on LinkedIn. So if you went to LinkedIn, Julie Brown BD, that is me. You can connect with me there, but let me know you saw me, heard me on this podcast, because otherwise I'm just going to ignore it. The second way is to go to my website, and there's a couple of forms on there. You can have a work with me form, which is mostly for speaking, but you could just fill it out and say, this isn't for speaking, this is for strategy. Or at the bottom of my website, there's just there's a thing you can fill out to just get on my mailing list, which every week I send out a newsletter. And it's not a newsletter. It's called Shooting the Shit with Julie. And it is a story. It is a story. Remember, I said our stories is a networking story from the week. And these stories will help you see, I can fit networking into my life. This was a networking thing. This was a networking thing. So, and they're really fun. And it is unheard of to have a newsletter with a 75% open rate, but I do have it. So I know the newsletter is really good.
So this is really incredible because, you're giving so much to the community. I know you don't really have a lot of time to help like all the architects who want to work with you, but sign up for your newsletter and the book. Can you talk a little bit about the book?
Yeah. So the book,
yeah.
So the book is This Shit Works, Networking Your Way to More Friends, More Adventures, and More Success. And I put it in that order. And I put it in that order, friends, adventures, and success, way before the Surgeon General said we were in a loneliness epidemic. And I feel like we spend so much of our lives at work. And if we continue to bifurcate our lives into work friends and real friends and not understanding the immense power of building really strong relationships and friendships in our industry, we're not going to just we're going to miss out on friendships. We're going to miss out on adventures. And we are certainly going to miss out on the success that would come to us if we didn't create those relationships. And so it pretty much is a recap of at that point, it was 20 years I had spent in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, and the lessons I learned and the tools I used and perfected as far as networking goes in those 20 years.
So, Julie, thanks so much for everything that you've done and all the content that you're creating online on LinkedIn. I mean, I saw the one with you on the phone.
I love those.
Operator. That was amazing.
I love those.
So, it's not easy to create content, and the industry is very lucky to have you because we really need coaches, right? Like you online. We're getting a lot of value from your free online resources. And also the strategy behind networking is you build friendships first.
Yeah.
Right? That's always, I love building relationships before even working with that person. So for that, I really thank you. And good luck with your next chapter. 75% of your time in speaking. That's amazing. Mm. So do you have a separate website for that? It's all the same.
No, it's all the same. Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah. So any parting words?
Listen, I just think networking has historically gotten a bad rap for a number of different reasons. And it's because we look at it wrong. We look at it as a sort of like quid pro quo. I'm going to need something at the exact same time. Somebody else is going to need something, and that's how it works. It's not how it works. It's building relationships. And if you literally just looked at it as caring about somebody else, being informed about what somebody else does, like understanding that person, being curious about them, networking would be a lot easier for everybody.
Thank you so much, Julie. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I did too. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Her Space. If you want more, head over to architectmybusiness.com for more episodes, show notes, and links to everything mentioned in this episode. Don't forget to catch our second mini show, Ask Aya, every Friday, and our main show, Architect My Business, released every Monday. If you enjoyed our episodes and want to hear more, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time.